Well, a Williamsville man faced a federal judge today and could see 20 years in prison for allegedly orchestrating a Ponzi scheme that defrauded investors out of tens of millions of dollars. Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Levin.
And I'm Mary Alice Demler. Woodhill Capital President Richard Teplitsky was arraigned on federal mail and wire fraud charges earlier today for his alleged role in the Ponzi scheme.
Now, if you're not clear on what a Ponzi scheme actually is, here is how it works simply. A Ponzi scheme, in simple terms, is a fraud or false promises. Here's how it works. An investor is going to give their money to a firm with the promise of low risk and high reward. But instead of using that money on the market itself, those funds will be used to pay returns for others who were told the very same thing.
But when the firm is not able to recruit more investors, they run out of cash to pay its other clients. The whole thing falls apart and the money is gone.
Joining us sides, Nate Benson was the only reporter in court this afternoon when Teplitsky faced a judge. And Nate, we learned an awful lot more about this Ponzi scheme locally here today, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right, Scott and Mary Alice. There were some pretty surprising details revealed in court today. The biggest, perhaps, this scheme may have been going on since the 1990s.
The stakes grow higher for the man accused of carrying out a massive Ponzi scheme, not at a New York City hedge fund, but at a small Western New York investment firm. The new details even surprising for UB law professor Christine Bartholomew.
According to his own description, this had been going on for 30 years.
71-year-old Richard Teplitsky, the president of Williamsville-based Woodhill Capital, was arrested Monday, then arraigned in federal court on Tuesday on mail and wire fraud charges. The scheme was relatively simple. According to the complaint unsealed in court, Teplitsky would solicit to investors that their funds would be used to finance loans to businesses that were seeking to borrow money to acquire commercial equipment. But prosecutors claim virtually none of that was true. When Teplitsky met with FBI investigators, he said that only 5 to 10% of those loans were legitimate. The rest, according to Teplitsky's own interview, were fake.
Usually we just have Ponzi schemes where money is being used to pay off another investor. There's another layer here. The Ponzi scheme was performed here also by creating fake loan documents, recycling past loans and just updating the dates for those equipments. That's taking this to another level that goes just beyond this traditional paradigm of a Ponzi scheme to true fraud.
Teplitsky also told the FBI that the scheme started back in the mid-1990s after Woodhill did not have enough money coming in from borrowers to make the payments that were due to Woodhill's investors. That's when the fictitious loans were created. When investor payments stopped suddenly in March, one of the investors got curious
and did something that was, I think, somewhat extraordinary. When they didn't get the answers that they wanted to know about what was happening here, reached out to the companies to whom they were supposedly lending money, and figured out through a series of registered letters and back and forth that all these loan documents had actually been fabricated.
According to the unsealed criminal complaint, Teplitsky told the FBI that there were approximately 170 to 190 investors with Woodhill who were owed tens of millions of dollars in principal and interest from loans that their money had funded. Back in early April, 14 investors filed a lawsuit against Woodhill Capital, saying that they lost about $13 million. But sources tell me that now as many as 100 investors have been defrauded as much as $60 million.
This is surprising, and maybe because it's also in our backyard. We love to think of this is something that happens in big cities and with sophisticated lenders, and this wouldn't be just for us, but this reminds us very much of how investment fraud, this type of Ponzi scheme, is something that can happen anywhere.
Teplitsky was released from custody this afternoon, but was fitted for an ankle monitor and home confinement. He also had to surrender his passport. He was issued a court-appointed attorney during the arraignment. Neither one of them had anything to say on their way out of the courthouse. On your side, Nate Benson, Channel 2 News.
Got it, Nate. We'll continue to cover that one.